Two people, same $1 million, same safe 4% withdrawal, same sensible mix of stocks and bonds. One retired in 1969, the other 10 years later. One of them ran out of money and the other ended up with more than $10 million. And here's the part that ought to scare you the most. The one who went broke had more money in the bank 15 years in than he did the day he retired. That's today's topic on the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show.
It's the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show.
Howdy neighbor, Michael Andrews here with Andrews Insurance and Advisory, and you are listening to the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show, where we tackle real-life questions about retirement, Medicare, and Social Security. Today is another full-blown Michael tutorial, and we're going to go over why the first 5 years of retirement carry more weight than any 5 years that follow, and why the damage that they do is almost invisible while it's happening. So this is what I want you to think about. While you're saving, the order of your returns barely matters. Good year, bad year, good year, whatever. It doesn't matter. You keep buying, you keep investing. And typically by the end of it, you end up whatever the average is. But the day that you start pulling income out, order becomes everything. And that's called the sequence of returns risk. And it is the most under-discussed danger in retirement. Let me show you with real market history. Two people, each retiring with $1 million, invested 70% in stocks, 30% in bonds. The kind of allocation that a reasonable person actually hold. Each takes 4% in the first year, $40,000, and raises it each year for inflation. 4% is the number this industry has called safe for 30 years. Person A retires in January of 1969. Person B, 10 years later in 1979, and that's the only difference in them. Let's look at person A. 5 years in, his account is at $946,000. If he called me in 1974 and read me that number, most people would tell him, hey, you're doing great. But look at what he needs now. Inflation in the 70s was brutal. And to buy what $40,000 bought in 1969, he now has to pull nearly $51,000. His withdrawal rate has quietly gone from 4% to 5.4. 1 year later, 7.6. He's taking almost twice the rate that he retired on, and nothing on his statement says so. Do you know what your withdrawal rate would be 5 years from now if inflation ran hot? Not the dollar amount, but the percentage. That's the number that decides everything, and almost nobody tracks it. And here's where it gets eerie. In 1984, 15 years into his retirement, person A has $1,041,000, more than he started with. In 1990, he has $1.2 million. Show that statement to 10 advisors, and most of them tell him, hey, you're in great shape. Here's the deal. He wasn't. He was having to pull 11% a year just to live on. The math was already finished. His money ran out in 2003, 34 years in, and the day it happened was not the day it went wrong. It went wrong by 1975, and it took him 28 years to find out. That's the cruel part of the sequence of returns risk. It doesn't announce itself. Your balance can go up for 20 years while your plan is already broken underneath you. Now, let's talk about person B. Same million, same 4%, same mix. 10 years later, his first 2 years, the market runs up 14 and 24%. 5 years in, and he's at more than $1.67 million, more than he retired with after 5 years of withdrawals. 30 years later, he is roughly at $10.8 million. Same money, same strategy, same discipline. One of them dies wealthy and one of them runs out. And the only thing that separated them was which year that they decided to retire in. And one just so happened to retire in a bad decade. Now listen, these are hypothetical illustrations, but we are using actual historical index returns. You can't invest directly into an index, and past performance doesn't guarantee future results, but history is history. Now, I know what you're thinking because it's what everybody says when we do this. He should have owned more bonds. Well, I ran that too. All stocks, he goes broke in year 27. At 70-30, he goes broke in year 34. Bonds bought him 7 years, but they did not save him because in the 70s, bonds were losing to inflation right alongside everything else. Both sides of his portfolio were bleeding at the same time. And understand this, the stock market wasn't his whole problem. Inflation was eating him from the other side. What matters in retirement isn't what the market returns, it's what it returns after inflation. And if you don't think 8% inflation can't happen anymore, I'm telling you, the possibilities are out there. That's the thing I want most of you to take away from today. Sequence of returns risk is not an asset allocation problem. You cannot diversify your way out of it, which means the answer has to come from somewhere else. So today we covered the sequence of returns risk, why the order of your returns decides everything once you're spending. We talked about 2 retirees with identical money, identical strategies, but completely different outcomes based on nothing but their retirement date. The damage shows up in your withdrawal rate years before it ever shows up in your balance, and adding bonds delayed the failure without preventing it. So here's the takeaway. You cannot control what the market does in your first 5 years. You can control how much of your income depends on it, though. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. There are 2 real ways to protect yourself, and they suit different people. One uses guaranteed income to take out part of your paycheck off the market permanently. The other keeps more of your money invested with a structure that means you're never forced to sell in a bad market. I'll show you both and run them against 1969 so you can see what would have happened to this man either way. In the meantime, this is what I would like for you to do. Reach out to me and book a phone call with me. We're going to go over your first 5 years stress test. So what we're going to do in this is we're going to look at withdrawal rate today, see where it's headed, how much of your monthly income currently depends on market performance, what your guaranteed income covers, and how big the gap is between that and what your life costs. You will leave knowing exactly how exposed your first 5 years really are. So if you want to do that first 5 year stress test, call or text me at 918-842-7379 or schedule a time on my calendar at andrewsadv.com. It doesn't cost anything for me to take a look. By not letting me, it could cost you thousands. And wherever you're listening, whether it be radio, YouTube, or Facebook, if you would, subscribe and follow the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show so you don't miss next week's episode, because part 2 is the one that answers all the questions we got from this week. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show. Thanks.
It's the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show, helping you plan so your money will grow.